Very good afternoon to all. I am Avni Bakadia. I am an assistant professor in Parul University, Parul Polytechnic Institute in Computer Department. So today we are gathered here on this virtual platform for interesting session. Today's session is about database connectivity with .NET programming. So it is very interesting and important to learn .NET. It is useful in development field. Now, I would like to welcome our expert, Mrs. Apurva Kaluskar. She is a software engineer in Civica Resources Private Limited, which develops the software for India and abroad countries. And it develops the software with .NET Framework. I must say, she is a multi-talented software engineer and working from 5 years in this company. Without any delay, I would like to start today's session. So, over to you, ma'am, Apurva ma'am.
Thank you, Avni ma'am, for the wonderful introduction, and a hearty good afternoon to all the students. I just hope you all are not so sleepy, and I hope to make the session interesting for you all. Talking about me, my total experience in the software development field has been that of 4 years, and entirely I've been a web developer in the .NET technologies. And today's session will be about the database connectivity using the .NET technology stack. So my intention with this webinar is that all of you at least are interested, and at least I hope that the webinar opens you all to the kind of applications that are developed in the real world. And apart from that, how to use the industry standard tools, which are like Visual Studio, SQL Server, um, and also cloud databases. Apart from that, I think on the theory aspect, I will be covering a little bit of theory, which is just enough for you to get started with a basic application development. Because I think that you all being enrolled in Parul University and your faculties are highly qualified enough to teach you the theory I think it will be covered in the second year of your course. So that's my intention with this webinar. So let's just get started on this note. I'll be sharing my screen. Okay, so I hope that my screen is visible to everybody. So starting with, obviously I gave my introduction. So this is my professional experience so far. And so far I've worked in two companies, which is Civica Resources India Private Limited and Synovach Technologies. So in both the companies, I was working in .NET, and these are the various technologies and in which I have worked, which is mostly I was a full stack web developer. So I have been developing applications on the front end as well as on the back end. So on the front end, I'm well aware with React JS, with Angular JS, Knockout JS, Blazor, multiple technologies which I've listed here. And on the backend side, we have this Microsoft Azure, then ASP.NET, .NET MVC, then there is .NET Core these days. So all these latest technologies I've had the fortune to work on. So in case any of you plan to start learning or maybe indulge further in this areas, you can contact me for the same. Okay, so the contents of this webinar. So I'll be covering a basics about what is .NET. I'll be sharing the a brief version history about .NET, because there are so many versions out there in the market that it is very easy for a beginner to get confused with what to start, what is what. You cannot make sense of what version does what. So I'll be covering a brief overview on those versions first. Then I'll be explaining the use of .NET, or maybe let's say the market share of .NET in the current industry. Apart from that, I'll be also sharing the details on the average salaries given to the .NET developers in India, and I'll also be sharing useful links which can give you the latest statistics. So all of that will be covered in the first section. Second section will be covering a brief about databases, what is SQL. Third is about a brief on the cloud databases. Fourth section will be the actual core section of our entire session, which is the ADO.NET connectivity with CRUD operations. So in that section, I do intend to create an application in this webinar with you all, which does basic CRUD operations on a database that we create in our local system. So I hope that part all of you find interesting and you at least get something to take away from it. If nothing, then at least try and go through the tools which I'm using, the SQL commands which I'm using, the kind of language constructs that I'm using. So even observing those parts will help you to get started with development, right, with .NET or maybe any other language. And the fifth section will be, I'll be giving you links to the webinar artifacts. That is obviously the source code of the application that we create, and as well as the SQL commands. All right. So yeah, and I think ADO.NET connectivity with CRUD operations. I think ADO.NET is specific to .NET, but the CRUD operations that I will be covering, which is the create, read, update, and delete database commands, those are common to all the languages. So in the future, if you plan to work with Java or with PHP or with any other high-level language, so in that case also CRUD operations will be useful to you. So do pay attention in that section. Okay. So when I say .NET, .NET as of now, it means .NET 5.0, right? But there were so many versions in the past in the .NET which were created by Microsoft. So .NET is basically a software development platform created and fully managed by Microsoft. So when I say software development platform, I think you all must be aware with C language or C++ language. So for that, you are using something like Turbo C for your coding purposes. Turbo C is nothing but a basic compiler which compiles the code that you are writing. But when I say it is a software development platform, it means that it hosts a lot of features apart from your basic compiler. It also has a lot of SDKs, runtimes. So that is intended to ease up your development process, right? And it also has lots of other features to highlight the errors in your code, the spelling mistakes in your code, which speeds up our development task, right? So this is fully developed and created by Microsoft, but it is free and open source platform. So when I say free, it is free to get started with, right? So you can download the basic .NET SDK from the Microsoft official website and get started with your development. And when I say it is an open source platform, I am not sure if you might have heard what open source softwares are, but open source is something that is not a proprietary software, or it may be partially proprietary. Say it is owned by one company, but the source code of that particular software, it is open to the world to change and explore. So .NET is such an open source platform where the owner is Microsoft, but the code that comes into it into the .NET framework, that can be contributed by you as well as me, right? So that it is that simple. Another example of open source software I can say is Android. So Android operating system is owned by Google, but so many companies like OnePlus and Xiaomi, all of these companies have their own flavors of Android, right? So how do they do that? Is that they pull the main source code of Android and make changes as per their targets as to what the kind of UI or the kind of features that they want to provide to their users. So that's how open source softwares work. So in case you are curious about how the actual source code of .NET looks like, as in it must be containing thousands and thousands of lines of code, but just to see that what a real project looks like, you can just visit this link. Right, I'll be sharing the entire this entire slide deck with you after this session. Also, there is the C# compiler of called Rose. Okay, so .NET can be used to create applications of all types. So it is desktop applications. So that is for example, your Microsoft Office or something like your VLC media player. All of those are your desktop applications, and .NET can be used to create many more such applications of your choice. You can also create games for your Windows platform, Mac OS for your Linux platform. All of this is possible. You can also create mobile applications. You can create websites, web applications, cloud applications, IoT and AI applications. So IoT is your Internet of Things, and AI is your artificial intelligence. So all of the latest paradigms in technologies are possible to implement using .NET. Um, Also, I think the recent advancements in technologies like blockchain, machine learning, data science, which is the hype right now. All those technologies also, all those concepts also can be implemented using .NET. You can create applications for blockchain, for AI, for IoT, for machine learning using .NET. So SDKs for all of these things are available. So I think I would highly recommend for any beginner to start learning .NET, because you can go any place once you know .NET, right? So talking about the versions, I think I should just first show you the diagram once. That will make it easier for you to understand. So when I say .NET, in the past there was .NET Framework, then came .NET Core, and then there's something called Xamarin, right? So .NET Framework is the first version of okay, back to the session. Um, I hope my screen is visible again. Okay. So I was talking about so
Wait for 1 minute. Sir Jojuni. Okay, wait for 1 minute. Ma'am is coming. So, who are attending a webinar, they have to fill up a form. We are sharing the form with a FR. So, collect your form and fill up the form and send it to, attach a screenshot and send it to me. Okay. So, Google form is there. So, please fill it. And we are continuing to.
webinar
Hello, sir.
person है
So, PU webinar from PU webinar. Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Alaikum. Had a bit of a connection issue with my internet. So let's continue with where we left, which was .NET Framework, right? So as I was saying that there were lots of versions of .NET in the past, which is .NET Framework, then came .NET Core, and Xamarin was an entirely separate thing. So in .NET Framework, you've got multiple app models like WPF, which is your Windows Presentation Foundation. Then there is Windows Forms, which is used to create forms, the application which we'll be demoing later on if possible. That was done using Windows Forms. Then ASP.NET used to help us to create websites. But now for the more of the modern web applications and websites, we use the ASP.NET Core, which you can see here in the .NET Core section. Also in the .NET Core section, which is the more recent version of .NET Framework, you also have UWP, which is a unified Windows platform. This allows you to create applications such that they can be hosted in multiple environments like Mac OS, in your Windows, in your Linux environments, all of those places. So, and again, yes, and Xamarin was something which helped you to create mobile applications. So, as you all must be aware that when someone tells you that I am an iOS developer, right? So, what he basically means is that he is writing code only for iOS devices. When someone tells that I am an Android developer, then he or she is writing code which is only meant to target the Android devices. But if you are using Xamarin, then you just have to code once, right? You write the code only once, and that code can be compatible for iOS devices as well as for Android devices. So this is a unique kind of software development platform given by Microsoft, which allows you to host your mobile applications in multiple environments, and you only need to code once. So all of these three, .NET Framework, .NET Core, and Xamarin, combined later on to become .NET 5.0, which is also known as .NET. It is a single unified platform for all of the entire .NET ecosystem, right? Um, so the .NET ecosystem has a single common library, runtime, language compilers, and tools. So what I mean to say by that is that the compilers, languages, and runtime components are the same for all these three. They were same for all these three kind of platforms. But now again, since you are using only .NET 5, the language compatibility for across all these platforms is very fast. Okay. Um, Coming back to .NET 5, again, as I said, that we can create applications for the desktop, web, cloud, mobile, gaming, IoT, AI. So this diagram sums up the entire, uh, the features which I explained thus far. Again, the tools which we mainly use for the .NET development are Visual Studio. It is an IDE, which is an integrated development environment, which helps you to speed up your development process, right? Then there is Visual Studio for Mac. If you are trying to do .NET development in Apple desktop system, then you can use the Visual Studio for Mac. Then there is Visual Studio Code. There is command line interface, and also lots of other things like SQL Server, Oracle, depending on the database that you are using, which we'll be covering further. Okay. So languages in .NET. So when compared to other development platforms like Java, to Python, to PHP, those platforms are compatible only for one language. But with .NET, you have the option to code in any language which you like, which is your C Sharp, then there is F Sharp, there is VB.NET, C++, Ada for .NET. Ada is a very old language. You might not have even heard ever about that. Then there is Clojure, which is a scripting language that is widely used these days, actually. So these languages, apart from that, there is a whole lot of other languages which are supported in .NET, which you can see in the link which I mentioned here. It's a Wikipedia link. So if you do have the time, please visit it later on. This is the .NET environment which I wanted to show to you. So on the top layer, you can see that there are lots of languages like C Sharp, C++, VB, .NET, J Sharp. So all of these languages are sitting on top of the framework that on top of the technology that you are using, like ASP.NET, Windows Forms, WPF, Silverlight. Below that, you have your WCF and WWF, which is your communication and workflow tier. So WCF is mainly used to write services for Windows and the web. So then there is ADO.NET, LinkQ, and XML, which is your data tier. So ADO.NET is used to connect to databases that we'll be seeing further in this session. LinkQ is a kind of a language integrated query used to manipulate the collections of data that we receive from the database. And XML is a global universal standard used to annotate the data. Apart from that, you have your BCL sitting below that, and then there is a common language runtime which helps you to convert all of this high level code into a single kind of machine understandable code. So that is done by CLR, and then below that you have your operating system, which can either be your Mac OS, your Windows operating system, or your Linux operating system, right? So here I've linked some of the links to get started with .NET development. So the things that you need is a .NET SDK. Then you need your Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition, which is free for students. You need an SQL server. If you intend to work with an SQL database, then you can use the SQL Server Management Studio, which is highly recommended for beginners. And also, if you want to go for Oracle, you can Google that by yourself. I've not mentioned the links here, but I'm sure it is very easily available in the market in the free version as well, right? Optionally, you can also use your Visual Studio Code if you want to try a different IDE apart from Visual Studio. And for .NET Core and .NET Framework developments, if you do intend to go with that route, you can also use the link which is mentioned here. Okay, talking about the future of .NET jobs, .NET is a language which is used by almost every Fortune 500 company, as well as you will see a lot of companies in India, be they mid-level companies or high-level companies. So many companies have got so many vacancies right now for .NET developers in India. So as you can see, as per an estimate given by Indeed, so there are close to 20,000 positions open today itself for .NET developers in India. So this can range from fresher level jobs, entry level jobs to senior software engineer level jobs. But the market is there. So .NET is not a bad choice to plan a career, right? I've mentioned some of the companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Dell, TCS, Accenture, Infosys, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan. These companies use .NET as of now. Um, so yeah, for more information, you can go to this link, and it will share the list of all the companies that use .NET, just to give you a big perception on what .NET is in the market. Now, this is just a graph which I got from this website, statshare.io. It is a very reliable statistics website, by the way. So, this talks about the comparison. This compares basically ASP.NET with its top competitors like PHP, Java, right? So, it stands somewhere at the second rank, I can say, right? An average salary of .NET developer in India, that is 4,12,356 per year, which is I think close to 35,000 per month in hand, right? So when I started out as an intern in the .NET development field, I was earning 25,000 as a starting salary. So which was good back then, like 4 years back, it was good. So the salary in hand is not bad for a .NET developer at all. You can visit this link to find out to verify the estimate that I'm sharing here. Apart from that, if you're just curious to know what kind of salaries do software engineers earn at various companies, like obviously we all know that software engineers at Amazon or Google are paid so much, so such a high package, such a wonderful package. So you can find those statistics on this website. It's a very reliable website. So many of my friends do refer this whenever it's needed, and it's quite accurate. Okay, so that was all about the .NET. Now talking about the databases. So I'm not sure if all of you are aware of the database subject. I mean, if it has been covered in your syllabus so far. But just to give you an overview, then database is an organized collection of structured information, and it is stored typically stored electronically on a computer system. Um, when I say a collection of structured information, then also Excel does the same job. A sheet of the marks of the student of so and so department or so and so class is also a structured collection of data. But the difference between an Excel sheet and a database is that you cannot manipulate an Excel sheet with SQL commands, or you cannot manipulate it in a way that it can be linked with your real world applications, right? So that's where databases are used, and database management systems are tools used to monitor, maintain, update, query, and write data to the database. And together, the data in the database are referred to as a database system and often shortened to just database. So, what is the purpose and why do we need databases? So, whenever you want to create any real world application, so um, for just as an example of taking an example of the IRCTC website, if you want to book a train ticket, right, or if you want to make a transaction in a bank, you want to play games, say if you are playing PUBG with some of your friends, then how do you know that the data is transmitted between the you as a receiver and the server seamlessly? So that can be handled using databases. uh, Databases are of two types. It can be a single instance of a database, or it can be a distributed database. So when I say distributed database, I mean to say that the copies of that database are hosted at different servers globally. When I'm talking about games like PUBG, right? I think PUBG had got its servers in different continents like Asia, United States, Japan. So it is not possible that we have one single server of database for PUBG hosted in Delhi, and someone playing from Japan is trying to connect to Delhi, right? So that will take a lot of time for that player to get a response from the server, and by the time he'll be already killed in that game. So it is not feasible at all for real world applications. That's why we use distributed databases, where the same copy of databases hosted in different parts of the world, like Delhi, then there might be 10 servers in Japan, there might be 20 servers in US. So players from that particular region are connected to the nearest available database server so that they get the fastest response time from that, right? So that's how they work in the real world. Sorry, in the real world. Coming to the types of databases, they are mainly of two types. One is relational, one is non-relational. Relational databases store data in tables called as entities, and non-relational they do not store in tables. They mainly use structures like graph, or something like a key value store, something like a wide column store. Then that will be called a non-relational database. Typically in the market, for applications like banking applications or IRCTC, typically we use relational databases, as the tabular structure of the database is more convenient for such kinds of applications. So to manipulate the data in such DBMS, there has to be a programming language, right? Otherwise, how do you explain to that database that you want to fetch so and so number of records, or you want to manipulate the data of so and so person? So for that, you need to have a language. So that language, for the purpose of RDBMS manipulation, it is called SQL, or Structured Querying Language. Structured querying language is common across all the popular databases like SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL. Although some of the features given by these four RDBMS might differ, but the underlying SQL is the same. There might have been some differences in some kinds of formats. So as we say that in Gujarat, like every 10 kilometers or every 20 kilometers that you step, there is some difference in the accent of the Gujarati that you hear. Similarly, it's the same case here. There might be minor differences in the SQL, but the underlying language is the same. Okay. So, like I said, CRUD operations in SQL, CRUD basically stands for create, read, update, and delete. Create, as in I mean to say insert statement. Read is a select statement, which is a query. Update and delete. So, update basically updates a record, a column in a record, and delete command, as it suggests, deletes the record which you want to delete. I intended to show a practical example of a movie database, but I think I'm not able to connect with my laptop, so that's going to be an issue today. Just a minute, let me just check once more. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. Now audible, ma'am.
Okay. And also SQL Server is visible, right?
No, not visible. Present your
It
screen.
might, just a minute. I have just shared my screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay, finally we are here. So yeah, I want to create a new database for a movies database, right? So my intention is to show you the basic CRUD operations, which are create, read, update, and delete. So for that, I need to create a database here. I'll just right click and go to new database. I'll write the database name as movies, right? And just click on add. Sorry, I'll just click on OK here. And I have a database here now, which is movies. So in that, as you can see, there is no tables right now. I need to add one table here, right? For that, we have this SQL command, which is create table movie, and we specify the columns that we need to add, which is ID column, name, release year, genre, and rating. So let me just execute that. So we'll be having our table created over here, right? So right now, just to see what all data is available in that in that table. Let me just execute this command, select star from movie. Since we have not inserted any records here, it is not showing us. So just to save time, I already had this script saved. So this will help us insert 10 records in that table. Right. So let's just select once more and see if our data is there. Yes, I can see 10 movies, list of 10 movies with their name, release year, genre, and rating. Okay, so this is the create from the crude, which I just said, right? Crude operations. So this is the create command, insert. This is the read command, select start from movie. The update command is this. So when I want to update any particular record, say I want to change the rating of the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, I want to change that rating from 8.1 to 2.3. So this is the command that I use for that, update movie set rating to so and so. Let's just check it once more. There you see 2.3 over here, which was earlier something else, right? So that's how update works. And delete is basically of multiple types. You can delete individual records from the table, or you can entirely delete all. For that, you have this command, which is delete from movie where ID equal to something. So if you want to delete the fifth record from this table, which is the Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, so for that, you execute this command and that record is gone from the table. Let's just check once more. Right. If you want to remove all the records, then there is truncate command, which is here. And truncate, I think it's fairly straightforward. Just let me show it to you quickly. Right. So truncate will remove all the records. So as you can see, there is no record. Let me just put our data back into the table for our demonstration purpose. There. Okay, and right, last is drop table, which deletes the entire table. So I don't want to delete the table right now, but you can use that for your reference later. I'll be sharing the SQL list of these queries with you as well. So this is it, right? Now what our purpose is that I want to create an ADO.NET application, which basically it uses this database to create CRUD operations. So ADO.NET stands for your ActiveX data object. It is a database access technology created by Microsoft. It is basically, if you want to connect your application to your database, you need some kind of external library, right? So that library is given to you by Microsoft so that you don't need to write the entire set of code for connecting to a database and reading that data from the database. You can simply reuse the commands which are given by Microsoft to you. So this is the overview of the ADO.NET architecture, right? There is a data provider. Data providers can be your SQL, Oracle, OLEDB, any kind of data provider. Then comes in the database in the picture. There is a connection which you use to connect your application to the database. There are commands like your CRUD command, select, insert, update, delete, which we'll be using. There is a data reader to read data from the database, right? Then there are common objects like which are different from your data provider, which are your data set. Data set is basically a cached copy of your database that you have selected, right? So when you say select star from movies where ID equal to 5, it will return you one record, and that one record will be stored in the data set. Then there is a collection of data tables. Right, you have your data row, data column, constraint. So as you can see there is a data table. So even in the SQL management studio, we just saw that there is a table. There are rows and columns. So these data row collection and data column collection are synonymous to that. And the constraint collection means that the constraints like foreign key, primary key, which are set on the table, this object contains the entire collection of those constraints, right? And then there is a data relation collection, which basically gives you the relation between two tables in the data set. So that is the basic architecture of ADO.NET. These are the list of the ADO.NET components, which I just explained. You can go through these components in detail if you want to in the slide deck. Okay, so I wanted to actually create a live Windows form application in this session with you all. But since I'm running short on time, I'll just show you the one which I've already created, right? So this is your Visual Studio actually. So Visual Studio is mainly used to write applications for the real world, right? So as I said, it is an IDE, integrated development environment. So as you can see, you have got lots of options like connecting your solution to the GitHub repositories. Then there are lots of extensions that you can download. So all of those things are possible using the Visual Studio. Let me quickly run it so I can show you. This is facing some connection issue. Let me resolve that quickly. Okay, so let's just create a new application, right? I'll show you how to create a Windows Form application first. We go to create a new project, search for Windows Forms over here. Right, so that template is already available with us. So we simply need to start working on that. So I'm not taking time to rename this. We are using the .NET 5 target framework. So let's say create. So this will create for us a basic template of the Windows Forms application. And I'll design a basic Windows Forms for you and just brief you with how to write the commands in that. So this does take some time to scaffold. Okay, so here we have our Windows Forms application. Starting with the toolbox. So this will create a console application in the Windows. This is a Windows form, so you can use the available toolboxes here like label, then say text box, right? That we will be using to create our form. So you want to duplicate these things. So just a minute. Okay, so let's just select it like this. You press Control and drag it here. So there you will create a copy of those controls. Similarly, we need 4 actually because we have got 4 separate columns. So first is for your name, right? Just click it here once, or maybe right click and go to properties. So this will open your properties window for you. Okay, so the text will be movie name, and the name of this label will be txt, sorry, lbl movie name, right? In a similar fashion, you have your text box over here. So call it txt movie name, and your text will be nothing because you want it to be empty for now. Similarly, let's just quickly name these labels. Call it your let's say genre, right? And this will be called your uh, genre is the text, and name will be lbl genre, right? So let's just use these two fields for now. I'll be removing these as just quicken up our work. Okay, then you have your button. Okay, so I've added a button here for save. So going to the properties, let's say it is save, right? And let's call it btn save. So I'll just demo the insert operation first. You want to also see the records of the table over here. So for that you have got a tool called data grid view. Hello. Okay, so I'll just show you quickly a data grid view, right? Let me just put it over here. Okay, so going to the properties for this. Um, Background color you can change over here. So lots of formatting options are available. So let's just go with the light one, right? And I want to also configure it for the name. Just a second. So let's call it DGV movies, and okay, right? Fine. So because we'll be showing our table over here, I need to add columns, right? So let's add your ID column. which is ID. ID columns are usually not visible, so we uncheck this one. Then there is name, right? Name column, and you have your genre, right? So you want to keep it visible. Okay, close. So again, I just need to make this one as visible. Right, so I'll again add it, call it name and visible. Okay, so the column data property name has to correspond with the column name here, right? So for the name, the column name is again name in our database, and for genre, it is the same genre, right? Click on OK. So these two columns are visible. Now, just to show you how the command works, so I just want to quickly show you the load. Okay, so my intention is to load this table with all of the data that is available over here in this table. So for that, I'll create one connection. So this is where ADO.NET comes into the picture. So you go to SQL connection. It will ask you to add a connection, right? So let's just install the package for SQL client. Okay, so this will be managed by Visual Studio in the background. Meanwhile, we can just refer our application that we had already created and use the same connection strings over here. Uh, let's just add an app config file. In that, putting the connection strings over here. Okay, and I think there is an issue with the connection string. So let me just quickly correct it so that at least I can show you what the application does. Okay, so just a quick walkthrough with the application that I've created. So this is the Windows form that we finally create, right? So this is the name, release year, genre, rating. So this is corresponding to the 4 columns in the database, which you can see here, right? And these contain the values for the specific movie that you want to insert. So somehow this connection is failing in my local system right now. I'll be sharing this entire application as well as the SQL commands with you so that you can replicate the same in your local and try to run the solution. So what this does is basically if you insert some name like DDLJ release year like 1992, all the values here and click on save, then it will insert a record in this table and show that record to you over here as well. So this is a data grid which is similar to our table, which shows all of the records loaded one by one, right? Secondly, if you want to update something, so the records which will be visible here, if you try to double click that, the value like suppose you are double clicking a record of Passed Away movie, then the name release year of that particular, this entire record will be loaded over here. And if you change some value from for the rating, like say from 7.8, you are making it to 8.2, and you hit on update, then it will update that record, show it over here as well as in the table over here, right? Similarly, for delete command, it works like when you double click the record and it will again fill all of these text boxes. And if you hit on delete, then that specific record is deleted from the table. So this is how this Windows Forms application works. So I've shared the link with you over here, right? So this is that application which I'm talking about. So if you go to github.com, you will be able to see one repository under my profile, which is crude operations in ADONet. This contains the entire Visual Studio solution as well as all of this code which I've just shown you over here. Okay. Some changes that you'll have to make are in the connection string, which you obviously need to change over here because this points to my database. So that changes you'll have to make. Apart from that, everything will work fine. Also, the queries which I mentioned, the SQL crude operations, they are mentioned over here in the readme.md file. So you can create a database in your local and use these commands to create the database, right? Okay, so although I couldn't show you the demo successfully because of shortage of time, I hope it works fine for you. So, okay, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Apurva ma'am, for giving your valuable time to us and spread your knowledge about database connectivity in a topic for our student as well as our faculties. So anyone have any query, then contact me on a 9714779575 and I will post my query to ma'am and give a response to you. On behalf of IT department and the Parul University, I will take an opportunity and thank you once again for your valuable time. Have a good day. Thank you, everyone. So here we are ending our webinar. Thank you so much all.